Dear Heavenly Father, as we come this morning seeking to pull our minds and hearts away from the daily burdens, the things of this life that can so easily captivate every part of our mind and heart and attention, our desire is that you might draw our minds and hearts to you, opening our eyes afresh to see the most real things, the most significant things, the unseen things that you are doing in your eternal purposes for your glory. We need you to help us see today, and then to work in our hearts that we might see how our little lives, dusty lives, are actually part of your big purposes. So we pray that the God of peace, who brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, the great shepherd of the sheep, by the blood of the eternal covenant, would equip us today with everything good that we might do your will, working in us that which is pleasing in your sight through Jesus Christ, that to you might be the glory forever and ever. Amen. All right, even though we are not really referring to it or utilizing it very much today, if you're new to GBC, I just want to I want to make sure you know that there is a section of our church website that is all dedicated to your next steps spiritually. And so if you go to our website and the resources menu tab, and then come down to next steps, you can choose one of those subsections or just click on next steps itself. That takes you to the landing page for it. And so if you've never looked through that part of our website, there is a lot there, and I encourage you to go take a look at that. This morning we are introducing some significant updates to our church calendar. Of course, it's not just the church calendar. It's the plan for church family life that we're referring to. It's the programs and events that define what we do when we gather together as the body of Christ. But that's too cumbersome for me to say 100 times this morning, so we're just going to call it the calendar. Now, in the next service, our order this morning is basically backwards. In the next service, I'm going to explain the background that has led up to this. And in this time, I'm going to explain the facts. But basically, the background is three steps. First, we refined and revised our mission statement. We introduced that back in the spring at the last Next Step Sunday. From that, we completely revised our ministry priorities. That booklet that you were given this morning might look familiar to some of you, but it's actually been overhauled completely. And then out of that, we took all of GBC family life, all of our calendar, and we re-examined every part of it to see how we could best carry out all 6 of our ministry priorities. So I'll explain more about that in the next service. Lots of people have been involved in this. Thankful to Pastor John, of course, for all of his work. There is no way we'd be at this point if he hadn't been here since January. Eric and Alicia, Suzanne, Crystalline, our deacons and their wives have all been helping us work through these things. So that's the background. More about that in the next service. For now, I want to just get into introducing some of the specifics on the new calendar that you will need to know about, and you'll want to make sure you're at those back pages of your booklet where you can take notes, because there's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you today, and you might think of some things you need to do along the way. Speaking of things you might need to do, one of those things that would be very helpful is if you would subscribe to our church calendar, so that if you well, we don't have a way yet for our church calendar to automatically write itself if you're a person who still uses a paper calendar. That technology has not yet been developed. But if you use an electronic calendar on your phone or computer or something, then you can get our church calendar to sync right there with your calendar. So on our website, if you go to Coming Up, and then, well, you can click on Coming Up or you can click on Calendar. It works either way. And then when you get into the calendar, you click on this farthest right little button over here, and it takes you to the subscribe drop-down, which allows you to choose which of the world's largest companies you allow to know everything about your life. And get the church calendar added to that. Remember also that the church calendar is available in our church app. If you missed this at the last Next Step Sunday, you might want to really fast write down the name of this app up there in the left corner. Because when you go to the App Store, that's what you need to search for, church.app by Faith Connector. And once you download that, the easiest way to get to our church is just to search for Menifee. And when you search for Menifee, GBC will come up. You set it as your church. And from then on, the app works just like it's a church app. But you get to it through church.app by Faith Connector. That's the company that runs our website for us. And then once you have the app, calendar is there in the app. So Heidi Jean works very, very hard to keep that calendar updated and as accurate as we can get it. Of course, church calendars change at the last second, so it's not like it can be accurate every second. But this week, she has entered in all of our church events through the end of February in the online calendar, and also updated all sorts of sections of our website that talk about different things in our calendar. So please take advantage of that tool and subscribe to that. Okay, let's get right into some things that you need to be aware of in the new calendar. And first of all, let's talk about Sunday mornings. And basically, Sunday mornings aren't really changing. There's not really anything structurally, except we're adding one kids Sunday school class because we've had a kind of a weird gap age that there was a class for kids younger than that age and a class for kids older than that age, and kind of an odd little gap in there that we were missing. So we're adding, the class we're actually adding is this one, but because that bumps the ages around, it gives us a kind of a fuller coverage at 9:30. So otherwise, the rest of that is pretty much the same as what we've been doing before. So that's the only structural change that's coming on Sunday mornings. And Pastor John, is that class start? There's structural changes happening in there. Does that start next Sunday?
That's the plan, unless further notice.
Yeah, right. Unless we make another last second change like we're good at. But that 3 to 5 class should start next Sunday. Yes?
And I've already talked to individual parents, I think all of them, but if a 5-year-old's already in my class, they're probably a little bit older 5-year-old, they can stay.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of a curriculum series right now.
Right. That in all these classes, the age lines are just general guidelines. The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. These age guidelines were made for your kids and not your kids for the age guidelines. So, you can have a really mature 9-year-old who really wants to be in the main service down here, and you can have a 10-year-old who's just, 10-year-old boy who's not gotten there maturity-wise yet, who needs to be in children's church. We understand those things. You can have a 19-year-old who still thinks he's 13, and he may not come to youth Bible study. Okay, so other than that, Sunday mornings stay essentially the same. Other than that, but I do hope that you've noticed some at least subtle improvements in how we're greeting on Sunday mornings, how we're ushering on Sunday mornings. I hope you're noticing some of the subtle things we're doing in our worship services to try to be more intentional than ever. There are lots of things we're seeking to continue improving and growing in, but no big changes on Sunday morning. So that stays basically the same. But then when we show you the new calendar, you're going to see that it no longer contains grace groups. We realized that we were trying to accomplish too many priorities all at once during grace groups. So basically what we've had in our church structure is we try to accomplish several priorities on Sunday mornings, and then we try to accomplish almost all the rest of the priorities in grace groups. And at times, grace groups have worked very well, and I think done a good job with those things, but it is time to shift toward programs that focus more narrowly and give us less hurried opportunities to accomplish specific ministry priorities to which God calls us. So when I introduce to you the new things that are on the calendar now, and when you start to think, oh my goodness, we're going to be busier than we've ever been, remember, we pulled like 40 grace groups a year out of the church calendar, plus another 6 to 8 care nights. So we open up those 45 Sundays So just keep that in mind if it starts to feel like I'm overwhelming you with things to do. All right, but before we get to some of the new things, here are some things that aren't changing. Lord's Supper, about every fifth Sunday. Next Step Sunday, twice a year. We didn't do Bible Memory Challenge this summer, but it's on next summer's calendar. Community seminars, online community seminars, our Christmas Eve outreach, picnics, Family Fun Night. You're going to get the date for Family Fun Night in a little while this morning. That planning is underway. And should not start talking about that. Backyard Bible Club is also on the calendar for next summer. So all those things are remaining the same. So what are some things that are new? And remember that part of the primary question there is, how do we get grace group benefits in more focused ways? So first of all, we will have some dedicated prayer meetings. These number of times a year is kind of estimated, but 5 or 6 of these a year. And they will be similar to, well, you're going to see as I introduce several of these things that you have prayer, 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 prayer. It's going to come up over and over again because that was our most important grace group priority, and so the most important thing that we have to maintain in the new calendar. So that starts with prayer meetings, and the difference between prayer meetings and grace group is that the sole purpose of prayer meetings is prayer. And so there will be just more structure to that to just guide us through biblical praying. It'll just be work. We will be working in prayer at those. So prayer meetings, and then we're also adding a prayer workshop. For those of you who were, how many of you were here for Prayer Box Project a couple years ago, right? So that's the kind of thing we can do at a prayer workshop, training, equipping. And you're going to see this workshop word show up several times this morning, and you're already aware that we started worship workshop this summer, right? So we have 6 ministry priorities. You see them there in your booklet. And for each of those priorities, the people in the, do you guys not have a booklet? Who doesn't have a booklet? Some of the people who came in later? All right, where are they? All right, who still cannot see a booklet? We might have to do a little bit of sharing if we're, oh, we found the secret stash. Now, if we get one to every person here in this service, in the next service, if we've got some people who don't have them, we might need to spread them around a little bit, okay? So be ready to share if needed. Anybody else? Okay, let's see, back there. So you're going to see the workshop word, because if you look at the 6 ministry priorities, the 6th is shepherding, right? But one of the responsibilities of the shepherds, the elders, is to equip the church family for the other 5. So you'll see something like workshops for all of the other 5 priorities to help us keep seeking to equip you for worship and edifying relationships and evangelism and prayer. So prayer workshop will be a training workshop. And then we are adding praise nights. Okay, now here's what one of our ministry priorities says this. GBC exists to make disciples by encouraging corporate worship by verbal praise to God. In other words, praying to Him together, the kind of prayers that are praise. Does that make sense? So you know there's the kind of prayers that are asking for stuff, which are good, and then there's the kind of talking to God that's just praising Him for who He is, talking to Him about His greatness and goodness. We're supposed to do that together, the Bible says. So verbal praise to God and about God. That's talking to one another about God's greatness and goodness. So this has been right there in our ministry priorities all along, and it's been part of what we were seeking to accomplish at Grace Groups. The problem is it just often got hurried or left out. It takes time to just slow your heart down and think about the goodness and greatness of God and get your mouth started talking about it, you know? So praise nights will let us do that. Now, when you think of, in modern Christianity, when you hear praise nights, you think of like a singspiration and music. And we may use some music, but realize that these things are the main point, actually. To pray together to God about his greatness and just to talk to one another about his greatness. So there will be music mixed in, but it's not just like it's not our new concert night. So those come about 4 times a year. Those are for all ages. Whole families can come to that. And our primary priority there is corporate worship. Okay, this is the not called a workshop, but this is the workshop that fits with the teaching priority. Calling it Bible in Depth 2 times a year right now is what's in the calendar. So basically this is a Sunday night and it's a Bible study, and we go for about, I don't know, we'll try it, but my guess is 2.5 hours in just studying the Bible together. So the reason for that is because on Sunday mornings we have, we're on the clock, both at 9:30 and 10:30, and this will give us a chance to just dig into Scripture together, take our time, study carefully, get interaction, make sure everybody knows what's going on in the text. So this is for those of you who listen to a sermon on Sunday morning and it ends and you say, that was too short. Not all of you say that, I realize. But if that's you, if you say that was too short, can we keep going in the passage? Can we keep learning? Can we keep putting that together? Bible in Depth is for you. And along the way, it's equipping. It's equipping you for studying the Bible yourself. Because when we get to study like that, we get to teach about how we study the Bible anyway. So that will be the first one of those is, I believe, in, January. I'm not sure if there's one before that. Okay? How are we doing so far? Any questions? Any glazed looks? All right. Next we have, let me introduce some things for our ladies. Let's just go ahead and read what's on the screen. So Women to Women is Saturday mornings. There are 7 scheduled on this next, through the next school year in spring. The priorities there, prayer, teaching, edifying relationships. And then later this fall, we'll start Ladies Bible Study. So we're doing this in a little bit of an unusual format where we're doing, to try to make it manageable, 4 to 5 weeks in the fall and then come back. It's not really spring, it's late winter. Come back late winter and finish out with another 4 to 5 weeks of that. And that comes on that'll be on a weekday evening. So I think it's fair to say we have struggled to provide the spiritual care, the teaching, and the mentoring opportunities that our ladies have needed. It's just been a weakness for our church. And so we are hopefully taking steps now to shore up that weakness. So that starts with Women to Women. The pastors' wives have been working hard together with the pastors to try to craft a new format for us that I think will be really beneficial. I can't give you all the details about that this morning, but let me just mention a couple things. So it's kind of like brunch time on Saturday mornings. And for now, the plan is for this to be for our adult ladies. There will be some of them that will incorporate our teen girls and younger girls, including the December one that they're going to do. But in general, this is for our adult ladies, and that's because we've got some specific things we want to pursue, like prayer, where we really want to be able to have adult-level prayer requests among our ladies, not your 6-year-old there listening in. There's a place for both of those things, right? Women to Women, by and large, will be a place for our adult ladies. And that's partly just a space thing. We have a hard time having room for all the females in our church to be in one place at once. Certainly, we're hoping that the men will make it possible for your wives to come to this. So go out of your way to do that. But if you don't have childcare available on a particular Saturday, talk to Crystalline and we'll see if there's some way we can work that out and make it possible for you to get there. So there's this is ladies ministry, right? So you got to do it right. So nothing else that I'm announcing this morning has its own table in the hallway, but this does. It's got a table, it's got flowers, it's got fancy envelopes, it's got a hand-painted sign, it's got the whole shebang. So if you have questions about the ladies, about Women to Women, I think you'll be able to find Amy or Suzanne out there somewhere around the fancy table for the next couple of weeks. And there's very little value in me announcing this morning, but if you would, on the Saturday things, if you would RSVP for those, it will help them with their planning for groups and stuff. So I think Amy is the one who's going to field all of your RSVPing. So we'll have to remind you about that later. The first one of these is not very far away. It's in mid-September, I think. I forget the date. We'll show you later. And then ladies' Bible study, this is going to be curriculum-based, and so it'll be both a combination of teaching in the session itself, but Bible study that you take home with you. So in that way, it's helping us carry out our priority of teaching, but remember that part of the ministry priority of teaching is the equipping you for your own Bible study, right? So this will accomplish some of both because it'll give you a format for your own Bible study and then build on that with teaching. We're going to use Jen Wilkins' what is it, 1 Peter? Jen Wilkins' 1 Peter for this first study. So it's a great study that I think you'll really enjoy. So ladies, there is a packet, an envelope for you out there in the hallway that you need to make sure you pick up today. It has your name on it, unless we forgot you, in which case we did not mean to forget you. I assure you that I overheard downstairs in our home this morning, did we forget anybody? So we're not trying to forget you, but hopefully there's an envelope out there with your name on it, and you'll want to make sure you pick that up today because it has more information, and it has all the dates all the way through next spring for both of these things in your envelope. All right. Now, just as we have struggled, well, first, any questions about Women to Women or Ladies Bible Study? Okay, just as we have struggled to provide what we should for our ladies, we have struggled to provide what we should for our men, and so we are hoping to turn a corner on that now. So starting in September, we will have a kind of monthly, though not in the summer, men's meeting on Saturday mornings at New Hub, and this will be pretty structured, led by our pastors. We're going to do some theology for a few minutes. We're going to do some practical Christian living teaching for a few minutes, and then we're going to really pour our hearts into prayer for one another. So it's a platform for shepherding, for the pastors to have a chance to teach, for praying for one another, and out of that, for the kind of edifying relationships that we need together as men. So can't wait to finally get the ball rolling with that. It has been way too long, but it's on the calendar now, so here we go. And then this has already been happening. We're getting it on the calendar now so that it's structured and to make sure it's consistent. So we have 5 or 6 teen fellowships, and there are other things that happen for our young people outside of these teen fellowships, but we'll do 5 or 6 of these a year, and again, prayer will be one of the first priorities we pursue in those things. We also have on here edifying relationships, and when I say that, I mean both the relationships between young people, but also the opportunity for them to continue building, mentoring, and discipling relationships with adults in our church. So that's another one of our purposes here. So you'll see that. There's one of those coming on a Saturday, early evening on a Saturday soon. And then we have 3 other workshops that help equip you for our ministry priorities. So several of you came to worship workshop this summer. Those will continue to be in the calendar. And then we will be doing discipleship workshop. We've done things like that in the past. And if you took Course of Your Life is like a giant discipleship workshop. And we'll be offering Course of Your Life again next spring. I have too many things to tell you all at once today. One thing at a time. Discipleship workshop, and then evangelism workshop to give us evangelism training along the way. So those are built into the calendar. So what we've done is we've laid out a rough calendar for the next 3 years. What we'll put into your hands this morning is the next 4 months. But some of the things I'm talking about don't happen until next summer or sometime early 2020 or whatever. Okay, those 3 workshops, and then 2 other workshops that don't correspond directly to ministry priorities, but they're things that we just have to have some kind of regular Bible teaching and encouragement, but they don't apply to our entire church family, so they can get overlooked kind of easily. So those 2 things are, you could probably guess, marriage and parenting. So we're not in a place where we can offer full-fledged Bible studies on those things all the time, but we can get scheduled in Bible teaching workshops. So marriage workshops, spring and fall, 2 weeks of parenting workshop in the fall is on the calendar now, and I can't wait to do those things. That'll be a lot of fun. Let's talk about outreach. Any questions so far? Wow. Either I'm confusing you so much that you can't even think of what to ask, or I'm explaining so well that you have nothing to ask. I won't ask which one it is. All right. Here's some outreach things that are continuing. Community seminars, online community seminars, Backyard Bible Club, Christmas Eve. We have a new outreach event coming next summer that we'll tell you about later. But the new outreach program, for lack of a better term, that I want to introduce you today is Outreach Night. And this is especially important because next Sunday is our first one of these. So the key to understanding Outreach Night is that it is both unstructured and structured. Both things are available. So by unstructured, I mean that we do evangelism in different ways. Evangelism is a personal responsibility. We have different personalities. We have different contacts. We do it in different ways. And so by unstructured, I mean that on Outreach Night, you can go reach out however you do it, however works for you. So if you've got a neighbor that you've been looking for a chance to invite over, this is a great night to do it. Sunday nights are a great time to do that kind of a thing. You can go prayer walk your neighborhood. You can go to your neighborhood park and picnic and see if you can connect with any neighbors. You can get together with someone in the church and go do street evangelism. All sorts of things you could do on your own initiative. So it's unstructured. You do what works for you, get together with other people to reach out. But at the same time, we realize that some of us would say, okay, realistically, if it's unstructured, I will end up doing nothing. I'll forget about it until the Sunday morning before, and then I'll be tired, and then we'll stay home and eat pizza and watch a movie. And so we'll also have structure for those of you who say, yeah, that would be good. I could use that. So the structure will probably, here at the beginning at least, be very similar to the old Go Nights. We'll meet at a park. We'll go out and probably in a new neighborhood, some of the places where we've got newer homes here in Menifee, and just leave invitations for our church with people. Some of you are at our church because of that in the past. So we'll provide some structure like that if you need it. And then if you have an outreach idea that you've already been thinking about, or people in church you want to get together with and do something, go for it. Unstructured or structured, but one way or another, Outreach Night, we all reach out. And then on the same Sundays that we have Outreach Night, we're adding one other prayer meeting. And this is basically just an evangelism prayer meeting. So the same Sundays that are Outreach Night, we're going to have Outreach Prayer Lunch. Now this is, Outreach Prayer Lunch is not, we're going to, what am I trying to say here? You've got to want to come, all right? Because what we're going to do is we're just going to pray for people to get saved. And it's not going to be fancy, and we're going to do it quickly, okay? We're going to do it at 1 at New Hub. Now, if you're thinking, wait, that doesn't give me time to get lunch. Well, that's why I call it Outreach Prayer Lunch. Just bring your lunch with you, all right? And or eat in the car or something. That's why I say you've got to really want to come, because we don't have any way to just cushion it and make it kind of comfortable and easy. So figure out lunch somehow. Bring yourself a granola bar to eat before you come, and we're just going to pray. We'll talk about whoever the evangelistic contacts are, of people that are there. We'll talk about Sunday mornings and church guests. We'll pray for those people, and we'll just pray in general for our communities and for God to save. So it's just purely a pray for God to save prayer meeting on the same Sundays that we do Outreach Night. Okay? Any questions? Next Sunday is Outreach Night. Time to plan. All right, next up. let's talk about missions. Oh, I was supposed to stagger those three things, so you didn't see them all at once. Ah! You didn't say that. Nobody saw that. Okay, okay, there you go. Fine. Okay, did everybody get the email a week ago Friday with a whole bunch of missions updates? Worked through all 4 of our missions partnerships, talked about the mission team. If you didn't get that, and you wish you would have gotten that, then either check your spam because it might be there, or talk to Pastor John and let's make sure we get you on our church email list. You can also sign up for it on the website. But let's get you on that list so that you get those updates. Because that was a very important missions update we sent out. And one of the things on there, members, remember, you've got a vote on Kendall support that was explained in that letter. The letter said September 1st. We're going to do it September 8th instead. Okay, so September 8th, members, you'll have vote on adding the Kendalls as our 4th missions partnership. And then let's talk about mission teams, because you guys know that mission trips, because you guys know that we set a goal for a church mission trip in 2020. So here's where we're at. So we have 4 missions partnerships, right? Turkey, you can't go there on a mission trip to where our missions partners are there without endangering our missions partners. A bunch of Americans showing up is not a good thing in Istanbul right now. You can't really travel with National Theological College and Graduate School and Paul and Kathy. I mean, there are some pastoral opportunities there, but it's not like we can take a church mission trip. If you were here when George and Lexi Binoka were here and we were learning about Kenya, you know that there definitely is a mission trip possibility there, because part of how they're equipping for church planning and outreach there is through the opportunity the Kenyan government gives Americans to come teach the gospel in public schools. So there's definitely a mission trip opportunity there. However, as I explained in that update, that's not going to open up until at least the summer of 2021. George and Lexi are trying to just get there next summer. So we've got a couple years before that'll be a possibility. And then our new partnership in Togo, again, there may be an opportunity for teams to be involved there. We think there will, but that's not going to happen until at least 2021 either, because they'll be back in the States for a year next year. So the Kendalls have asked us to just send a really, really little team from our leadership to go to help kind of survey the situation in Togo before we try to bring a big trip from our church. So Eric and I are going to go to Togo January 6th through 13th, and we're not really trying to go accomplish anything except just listen and learn and encourage and watch and be able to come back so that when we take a trip from our church, we can ease the burden on them, because some of us know a little bit about what's going on. So we purchased tickets for that this week, and Lord willing, be in Togo for about 5 days in January. So both Kenya and Togo are a couple years out for larger teams, and even when we do that, those trips will be fairly complicated and fairly expensive, and so that in some ways will limit the number of people who could go. So for our first mission trip, we want to pursue something closer to home, very affordable, not complicated, so that anybody who wants to can go. So we were planning to go to Utah June 14th to 20th, though those dates are flexible. If you need to be shorter than that, if you want to come later than that and stay longer, we can talk about that. But those are the basic dates, and we're planning to go help get Camp Utica up and running for their summer camp season. So this is a camp that reaches, this kind of shows you where it is if you see Salt Lake City up there, and St. George down there in the bottom corner, and Vegas would be a little ways further down the 15. So it's right in the middle, in the mountains, right in the middle of Utah, and a couple very important groups of young people that it serves. One is Christian young people who are often in very small churches in difficult places. I grew up with my average youth group size as a kid was 2. Me and whoever my buddy was that happened to be at church at that time. And so they come from small churches in town, towns. A lot of those kids are in towns that are 90% Mormon. And so they're the weird kid in town who's not Mormon. And so there's that group of young people for whom summer camp is like highlight of their year. And then there are the unsaved young people who come, including some children from polygamist Mormon families down here in the corner of Utah that are coming. So cool opportunities there. So that's some of the young people they minister to. Utopica is not a camp that has a lot of resources. They make camp, Utopica costs about a third of what Ironwood costs because they're trying to make it possible for those kids in those little towns to be there. And then about a quarter of the kids don't pay anything when they come. So the end result is that Utopica has no money. And the churches that support the camp are often small churches in tough places. So the camp is in great need of help. So we'd be a work team. We'd just be working hard together because the camp's closed in the winter because you can't get up the mountain in the winter. The road's closed. So we would just be working hard to get it open for the summer. Families, your whole family can come. The cost would be extremely low. You can drive it in one day. We'd be staying in cabins or in a tent if you want to, making our own meals. And so if you came on if you're one of those people who says, Pastor Tim, when are we going to do a church camping trip again? This is it. Okay? This will have the fellowship benefits of the church camping trip, Calvin, but with a lot of service to get to do along the way, getting to just work together. And there would be work for people who've got, if you've got some serious construction skills, we'll put your skills to work. But there will also be work for the, 5-year-olds who can jump in and help with things. So here's a few pictures from Utopica. This is the campfire that I told you about earlier a few Sundays ago that I remember when I was a kid. Same logs, I imagine. So when I was there, climbing wall was not there when I was there. Some games. And then these California girls that we brought up there with us this summer had to show these Utah people that they could shoot guns and ride horses just so they would stop making fun of us. So Katie on a horse and Abby with a gun. You can ask them more about that if they don't kill me for showing you those pictures. But it would also be, in addition to just being a service trip, it would also be a vision trip. It would be an opportunity for you to learn about that part of the country. It is so different from suburban Southern California. And so we would learn about the specific gospel needs there, the people who've been so faithfully laboring there. The director of the camp has been for several years studying trying to find every gospel preaching church of any type that he can find in the state of Utah. And so he'll talk to us about that. The results of that are kind of astonishing. And Utopica is just 30 minutes from an unbelievable Mormon temple in this tiny little out-of-the-way town in central Utah, in Manti. So we could go, well, they won't let us visit the temple, but we can get close to the temple. So I think it would be a vision trip too, in a way that would be really encouraging for us. So the email explains more about that. We would like to know by the end of September if there's a chance you might come. We're not saying you have to sign your name on, officially promising to come, but just to let us know that you're interested in considering it. So if you can talk to Micah or talk to Amy and just let them know, hey, we're interested in coming, because we need to start to give the camp an idea of what size group we'll have. And they've got room for us. We're not going to get too big of a group, and there will be no lack of stuff to do. So we don't need to worry about too many of you coming. So would you talk to Talberts about that? They're going to help organize that for us if you're possibly interested in coming. Wow, can't get my words straight this morning. Okay, so how does all this look on a calendar? Let's show them. Where are the calendar handouts? Let's do it. Mike, would you help Mike pass those out? Mike, and Mike, would you guys work on those? Thank you for lining that up for me. We probably don't have enough of these for all the little kids to get one. Maybe a couple of these per family is a good idea. That'll save us some for the next service. So when you get this calendar handout, you're going to see 4 months of the calendar plus a glossary that explains what these things are, why we do them. One of the things you'll want to look for is Family Fun Night. and get that date in your calendar. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to look at that and process kind of what the new calendar is looking like, and then see if you have questions as you see it. So go ahead and look through it, see if you have questions you want to ask. Pastors John or Eric, if there's something you know that I've neglected here, holler. Anybody not able to see a calendar handout? We get them to everybody? Family Fun Night has moved. Do you see that? New location this year. Youth dessert contest this year, as before. Yes, ma'am. What's the question? September 1st? New Hub, yeah. That's next Sunday lunch. Yeah, right. Anybody have any questions as you look at that? Yes, sir. Yes. Where's the water? Israel right now, we have to get it here. We are hoping to baptize right here. We're hoping to borrow a baptistry. That's still in the works, Pastor John? It's confirmed. We are borrowing a baptistry from Impact. Thankful for their help for us. And so that should allow us to baptize here. And we've talked to college, they'll get us water. Let's talk a little bit about how we're hoping to help you with childcare for some of the things like marriage workshop, parenting workshop, some of the things like that. So this is still kind of uncertain, but here's what we're hoping to be able to do. We're hoping to be able to have a meeting location and a childcare location that are in close proximity to each other, and to offer the workshop or study or whatever it is 2 times on a Sunday so that parents can swap childcare. And they'll be close. So we're working with a couple of possibilities really close to New Hub. So for example, I can't assure you this is what we're going to do, but for example, I'm making this up, okay? Don't hold me to it. Let's say we did 4 o'clock ignore the times, 4 o'clock at New Hub. And so we've divided our group into 2 parts, right? And so Crisps bring their kids to New Hub at 3:45. And Bixby's are there, and they're going to watch your kids. And you go 2 buildings down to the conference room at Caldwell Banker, for example, which might be something we use. And you come to the study from 4 till 5. And then you go and you watch the kids while Ben and Becca come down and go to the 5:30 study. Don't hold me to any of those specifics. We're still working on locations. We're still working on times. But that's the hope, is that we can offer it 2 times back to back. pretty close proximity. And I know parents are thinking, what are we gonna do about dinner? And I don't know. We'll work together and figure it out. But that's the goal. Yes, sir.
If the logistics work and God puts it on people's hearts to watch children or offer something, we may be able to do it once. Watch the children in one location and the other location would be teaching. But those are the two options on the table, depending on if God provides. But to ask the ladies to do the complicated nursery thing like they do Sunday mornings is too much to organize officially. But God could work in some people's hearts and we could arrange that. The buildings could handle that as well. So it'd be one time and recording. Obviously, we have to still make sure those buildings work and talk to the logistics,
You're saying if there were some people who just wanted to say, look, I'll just do childcare.
which is what happened at the community seminar.
Right,
It would be something like that.
right, right. So one way or the other, we'll need to work together. You know, we can't just say, don't worry, childcare will be taken care of. We got it. Because the only way we have to take care of childcare is to work together anyways, you know. So we'll just all have to work together on that. But that's our basic plan right now. Logistics of a lot of these things, we just got to figure out as we go along. And one of the things we did as we worked through all of the new calendar is we kept asking the question, how would a new facility benefit us? And the answer is hugely, right? Across the board in these things. So continue praying. We don't really have any news for you yet about a next facility step, but we're closer than we've been before. There's steps forward that keep happening, and we hope to have some news for you soon about where things are headed. So I hope you'll be praying for God to provide, because facility could unlock a lot of these things in being able to, logistically, just being able to get God's truth to everybody. So, all right, any questions? Okay, well then, so a couple things in conclusion then. So first of all, let's just say very clearly, this we will do if the Lord wills, right? And so we gladly place all things into his hands. And we know that we may not be able to accomplish some of these things. Facility or sickness or other circumstances might not even allow some of them to happen. Some things may not end up working well to accomplish our priorities, and we might cut them from the calendar. We will have new things that the Lord leads us to that are better ways to accomplish our priorities. So I mentioned that we've laid out 3 years of calendar, but we don't for a minute think the calendar is going to stay the same for 3 years. Just attempting to plan how church life lays out over time for the purpose of our mission and priorities. And then we just hold loosely to all of it and let the Lord of the church be the Lord of the church. So next service, I'll give some more background on how we got to this point. But let's think about some of your action steps that you got here this morning. So first of all, subscribe to the calendar or get the app if you haven't done that. Subscribe to the church email list. If you don't get those, let Pastor John know. Ladies, there's a table out there to visit and an envelope with your name on it for you to pick up. If you are interested in considering going on the mission team next June to Utah, talk to Micah or Amy and let them know that so we can get that interest list together. That's the action steps I can think of. Plus, come to all these things. All right? Anything else? Okay, you're dismissed. We'll see you back here at 10:30.